Hey guys, Akiba back for the next episode of the SlateCast. Today we're going to be talking about safety in Web3 and talking to a project that's created a tool that helps you to be safe when you're interacting with apps and applications in general in the world of Web3. So I'm going to run the intro and then we'll see you to chat with Ricardo. Let's bring in the man himself. Ricardo, how are you doing?
Doing well. How about you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. It's been a very busy month and a half in the world of Web3 journalism. I've definitely got a little bit older over this time. I think my hairline is going back even further. How about yourself? How's the whole kind of bear market treating you?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting observing it as an early stage startup, right? So we're not holding any crypto. We, have investors that give us cash to build software to make things better in the crypto ecosystem. So it's really been a very interesting period, and I think it's going to accelerate a couple of interesting trends for the industry. So.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's never a better time than to start building a bear market anyway. Most of the best companies in the world, even outside of crypto, were founded in bear markets. So do you want to give us a little bit of an insight into Web3 Builders, what you're doing, and why people should care?
Yeah, absolutely. So Web3 Builders, I mean, at its core, we're a company whose mission is to make Web3 safe for all. We founded the company based on this thesis that end user security is actually going to be the biggest barrier to crypto adoption going forward. And we can talk a little bit about what end user security means versus network security and general security. But at its core, our team is laser focused on building products that keep end users safe, specifically from scams. So that's what our company is centered on.
Okay, so I know that one of the products that you've got is something called TrustCheck. Am I right?
You are absolutely correct. Yep.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So TrustCheck is our B2C offering, and it's a product that's free. Never plan to make money off of it. We just want to get this anti-scam tech out there as quickly as possible. And so what TrustCheck does, it's a Chrome browser extension, and you can use it with any EIP 1193 compliant wallet. So basically browser-based wallets. And what it'll do is when you're interacting with any Web3 tech and about to complete a transaction, and that transaction could be you're signing a transaction, swaps, minting NFTs, etc. What it will do is actually intercept that transaction message and run an analysis on a series of checks. And we call these checks internally because basically what they do is they say, hey, is anything off with this transaction? So that's sort of the first part of it. The second thing that it does is it actually runs a simulation of the transaction to determine what's going to be the outcome of the transaction in advance before you've done it. And it does that on a forked version of the chain. So basically you can see, hey, this is how much ETH is going from wallet A to wallet B. And then this is, for example, the NFT that I'm getting in return when I click mint. In the event something's off, we'll give users a warning to say, hey, hold on there. I think literally that's the words that we put on there. Hold on there. You're actually just sending something without getting anything back. Something looks off here. You're transferring permissions to your wallet. So again, warning users in the event of something bad. In the event we don't detect anything off, what we'll do is actually just display all the checks that we've run, right? So you can have more confidence when you're actually interacting and completing a transaction. So that's on the B2C side. And yeah.
So maybe I did something wrong, but or maybe I did something right. No, so I've installed TrustCheck in my browser. I won't do a screen share just because it is ugly for now. But so TrustCheck's installed, and I just logged into OpenSea. So all I did was log in, and there was no pop-ups or anything. Is that as intended? But I can't see like any checks or anything. Is it not meant to for that sort of transaction?
No, it absolutely is. So if you've just logged into OpenSea, right, what you need to do is connect a wallet and attempt to actually buy an NFT, right? And then at the time when you hit complete purchase, what'll end up happening is it will pop up because it's intercepted the transaction message. And then it'll actually, run through those checks. You'll get to see, okay, what checks has it run? Do I want to and have the option to either stop or proceed?
So is that because just logging in with my wallet isn't a potential attack vector, so that I know that that's a safe thing for me to do?
Yep. Correct.
See,
Correct. So in
see
general,
that's already. I mean, I would like to say I'm at least quite seasoned in Web3, but that's already making me feel more safe with the situation, knowing that okay, so when I'm logging in and I'm worrying, should I do this on the site? The fact that I've got this extension now and it's not flagged anything, you're basically saying I can now know that okay, well that sort of an action is an okay action to take. You're not at risk at that point. Is that fair?
yeah, I mean, I would think broadly that's fair. Now, of course, there are limits to every technology, right? So I don't want to say that we'll catch absolutely everything and continually will be improving. But in general, when you're connecting your wallet to a site, just the act of connecting it to a site is not in and of itself dangerous, right? Because that just lets it see, your balances, and really is sort of the basis of getting started. You can connect to a lot of actually scam websites and connect the wallet, and nothing bad will happen until you take that next step to actually run through a transaction. So, and what's interesting is actually some of these sites, right? Typically just connecting, some of these scam sites that you see will then immediately send something called an ETH sign request. And if you sign that ETH sign request, bad things are going to happen, and we will pop up in the event that occurs. And then similarly, if you click a mint button on a site that you've connected to, what'll end up happening is, sometimes that'll be a drainer template. And again, we'll catch those as well. So, but I think what you're talking about highlights, I mean, I would consider, many folks in crypto that are experts struggle with these things. I mean, I was talking to one of the most sophisticated traders I know in crypto the other day, and there's still that feeling every time you sign something, every time you complete a transaction of, hey, is this going to go through properly? Have I just drained my wallet? Is something bad going to occur? And that's for experts, right? Imagine what it's like for novices that haven't, yet interacted.
Oh yeah.
So again, our hope is that, I mean, there's both a sort of malicious transaction and technology or malicious technology component here, but there's also just an end user experience perspective, right? And so we talked about that term end user security. We think this is the area of crypto that's going to become the most important if we actually want to see mainstream adoption of the next, billion users, let's say.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, how do you feel around just the general user experience within Web3? I also do some advisory, and there's some projects that I'm working with where the kind of the user experience seems to be one of the areas that I think can be most improved, and especially actually I think from new and early stage startups coming into the space that have seen problems and don't necessarily have kind of the weight of all the years of crypto experience of just this is how things are done, can look at things with a slightly new light and start to improve it, because we're so far away with Web3 from the usability of like this. Like we're just not there. So what's your kind of view on that whole kind of area?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think usability and end user security are very much tied together. And my hope is that, and we've seen this a bit in the space now. I think more investors are starting to understand, entrepreneurs are starting to understand just like what a core pain point this is for folks that are in crypto. And by the way, especially, I mean, all the recent issues with centralized exchanges are going to only accelerate this trend and this need, right? Because if you want to interact with decentralized tech, you have to have good tools that make it easy to use. I think our view long term is that things are going to be integrated seamlessly behind the scenes for end users. So we talked a little bit about TrustCheck, which is again that free B2C extension, right, that anyone can download. But the core of our company long term, and as we think about also building a business, is actually providing APIs that enable other folks to integrate those same protections into their marketplaces, dApps, wallets, and do that natively, right? So if you think about in Web 2, when you interact with a browser, right, you don't select which antivirus vendor you're going to use. You just expect that Chrome is going to protect you. You expect your operating system to protect you. You expect that these things are baked in because you don't know about them, and it's very difficult. I mean, even people in the field, like you wouldn't know which the best antivirus vendor is, right? So our hope is that we can provide these services under the hood so that all those big players that do have market share, mind share, and have a lot of folks have a lot of folks using them, can seamlessly integrate these protections so that users don't have to think about them anymore, because that's what you want, right? You want it where users don't have to think about getting scammed when they're interacting with crypto. You want them to feel confident, and I think as you compare it to traditional finance and how you interact there, I mean, crypto has this unique value proposition, but also this unique hurdle it has to overcome, which is there are no takebacks, right? And so the cost of messing one of these actions up is much higher. So again, I think there's a series of companies and entrepreneurs and investors that are very bullish on this space in crypto in particular. It's obviously as with the rest of the market, it is it's an interesting operating environment to say the least in terms of building new software. But I really do think that this is going to be the key barrier if that is going to either prevent or help folks come back to crypto.
I mean, so this podcast is not. I literally got a pitch through from your PR team, Leia, that I know really well, and it seemed like an interesting project. So I wanted to have conversations. So I just want to make it really clear before I do this next bit that this is not sponsored content in any way, and this is actually the first time I've tried the technology. I like to keep things new, let someone introduce the project themselves. I'm not going to share my screen because I love that. This is cool. Like, this is really cool. So I've installed the plugin. So we've got it here, TrustCheck. We see that it pops up. I'm connected to Uniswap, official Uniswap. If I want to swap, say I'm going to swap 100 USDT into wrapped ETH right now. I'm going to swap and I'm going to confirm the swap. I click through and, you don't get the, one sec, let me unshare, hide my Slack tab, so you're not doxing myself. Let's go for, I can't go for a window. I can go for a tab. No, that one. We have to do the whole screen. Okay. Let's do whole screen. So this is what then pops up. And I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm just going to do this again. Go back, stop. Okay. Well, so dismiss. Right.
So I would say, and again, we can talk a little bit about the, Uniswap might not be the best use case right now for this one.
I mean, fair. So here we go. Even more transparency. You've just said it's not the best use case. I'm going to go through this because I think it's really fascinating. So if I try and do a swap and confirm it, we get this pop up, and like, this is so cool. So it says contract verified, uses a safe function, validated website. Like, you've got all of these checks that are in place, and I know that I'm on the right side, but there's also the possibility of things like DNS hacks and the such. And I have the option here to let you say more details. This is way more information than I'm going to get from MetaMask, and I can either proceed and carry on, or I can stop, and it stops the transaction. And like, for me, like, this is phenomenal. This is what I want to see in MetaMask. So if we go to proceed, I imagine it then just takes me through to and then get back to MetaMask. And this is what I would have got otherwise, which is fine if you know that you're happy with Uniswap and the such. But if that's what it's doing for me on a site that I trust, I still love the extra validation that yes, this is correct. So what I will now jump back to is, so why did you think that it might not be the best use case?
Well, I think so it's interesting because when you are in, and I guess, I say it's not the best use case in the sense of when you're interacting specifically on a trusted site, right? There are more guardrails in place. Like, obviously Uniswap, tremendous company, tremendously trusted. But it's more when you're interacting with sites that you're not familiar with, sites that are saying, hey, come mint a new NFT, that are eliciting that sense of fear of missing out. And then you have speed. And that's really where we see most folks getting scammed. So, as you alluded to, it's awesome to have the confirmation on a
company. But I honestly think you may be missing part of your value proposition there, because regardless of the site that I know, the more you know about crypto, the more nervous you'll still be even using Uniswap, because you know that there's always a chance that there's been like a DNS hack, and although it looks correct, this is a front end towards a different back end system. And now I've got something that just gives me the extra peace of mind that it's like, I don't know, for me, this feels a bit like an SSL certificate. Like, it gives me a little bit of extra stuff to it. So yes, I feel like it seems, amazing when if you're trying to interact with things that you sure of. One, my advice for people would always be use a burner wallet when you're doing that sort of stuff. Like, you can always move things from another wallet, but something like this on top gives you extra level of security. But I love I'm keeping this installed. Like, well, like, that's very cool.
I'm honored. We're honored. And no, I think, it's very interesting. You always want to, there's a balance here, right? And this is something that, you can probably see me even struggling with in the response of, hey, the do your own research versus the, okay, can we make tools and solutions that really make this bulletproof, right? In terms of making sure you don't get scammed. And, we think that the tooling right now gets you, can get you a large part of the way there if you do it the right way. And it's not just us, by the way. There are other companies out there that are doing, great anti-scam protection as well. And actually, most of them just startups, pretty similar stage to us. And that makes me, extremely happy and excited. But as you said, like, I wish this were integrated already into the wallet. I wish this were integrated into the marketplace you're interacting with in that transaction chain. So you didn't actually have to download another extension.
Are you building a MetaMask Snap?
We're evaluating it right now. Yeah. So I think it's it's pretty interesting. Although, I think there's an interesting question of, do you want to build a way for other folks to build in security, or do you want to actually, take on some of that burden yourself? I think products always have an interesting decision there, right? Because if you're a wallet, how do the question is, where does that line go, right? Because there is convenience to users, and also you can make it a lot simpler if you really invest a lot of time and money there. Now, of course, lots of crypto projects right now, I mean, many folks have announced layoffs. Many folks are sort of, have tight engineering roadmaps, right? But I do think that if we see more companies taking on trust and safety, as really like the core feature and the core value prop of what they're delivering, it's going to be better for everyone and beneficial for that adoption in crypto.
So the one question I would then have, though, around tooling like this is, are you essentially acting as a centralized entity that is deciding what is and what is not okay? Like, is there a block list of certain applications? How is that decided? I know that was a lot of the pushback when I was at Consensus during ECC. A lot of the questions around what they could do around snaps was leaning towards would they be blocking apps or not from being able to make snaps? And there's a lot of sort of pushback around how, if you do that, then you're potentially sort of censoring part of the network. So how are you deciding what is and what isn't okay?
Yeah, so I think, with scams in particular, it's always it's very interesting because you have sort of a distribution of how certain you are that something is a scam, right? So, like, let's say we go to a URL and we see a wallet trainer template that we know exists, is in the website code. Like, I mean, I feel very confident saying that is in fact a scam. Now, you say someone, okay, maybe they have, I don't know, their track record isn't perfect. They've had negative social sentiment, right? That gets to much more of a gray area. And most of the time we don't want to, that's not something that's interesting to us. Like something like saying, hey, is this a derivative work or not a derivative work in an NFT, right? That's very different than a lot of these sort of clear-cut cases of, no, this is actually just that has code that objectively is attempting to drain your wallet, or is objectively attempting to get you to send valuable assets and return nothing. And you're not getting any warnings on that. So right now, we still have a long way to go in those clear-cut cases, and that's really where we are focused. It's a common. So if you think about it, let's say someone were to report a scam to us, right, and say, "Hey, I think this website's a scam," for example, or a collection's a scam. What we'll do first is actually run that through our programmatic tests, similar to what you would see on TrustCheck and other what you would see on TrustCheck, and actually it's internal through our APIs. We'll check to see if there are any clear-cut cases where we're like, okay, this is definitively a scam. And then if it's not, we'll then do, send it to our scam ops team and kind of, review to see that case. But it's really a case-by-case basis. We don't ever want to be that centralized entity that's saying, hey, subjectively, is this a scam or is this not a scam? We still think we have a long way to go on the clear-cut cases.
So you're just looking at the code from.
Absolutely. Yep.
So here's another question. I'm going to share my screen again. Make this full screen. So this is an NFT project that so Killer Bears, and they have a staking system, so you can stake your NFTs. So I've got 2 different NFTs staked, and this is the progress of the staking. I'm on day 8. It'll last for a month or whatever. So the question is going to be, this is what happens in the enroll section. So I don't have any other Killer Bears or Killer Bits. I've only got 1 pair. So at the moment, it won't allow me to. But I'll run you through what this would do. And I'd love to know what, so I can't replicate this for the sake of the test, but I'd love to know what you'd expect the warnings to come up from. So I have to select a bear, and that would select one of the NFTs from my collection. And then I have to give it approval to be able to for me to send them and stake the bear, I then do the same with the killer bit, and that is a set approval for all contract. That means that they have access to any of those bears in my collection, because obviously that's part of the thing. I know it's the official site. I'm staking my NFT.
Mhm.
What sort of warning would you, obviously without running it officially, you won't know for certain, but what sort of warnings would happen in those situations that say, I know this is a legitimate site. I know that I'm giving it permission to take my NFTs. I don't know. I got this back. I'd have to check the Etherscan to know whether it came back actually in the same transaction or if it came over to me afterwards. But I did get one NFT in return. That's kind of my like derivative token to say that I've staked. So what sort of process would that look like?
Yeah. So I mean, as you said, set approved for all is an extraordinarily powerful, right, permission that you are granting. So in this instance, the warning that would pop up would say, hey, you're about to give permission to this counterparty to do whatever they want with the items on this smart contract. So we do actually say, hey, there's a warning here. We don't say this is a scam, right?
Yeah.
Because that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is, hey, be very careful and make sure that you trust this website that you're working with. And by the way, a lot of very legitimate sites, projects, etc., use set approved for all because it's a way that they can actually
OpenSea does,
yeah, exactly. They can manage transactions in a way that that helps save on gas fees, etc. There's a lot of good stuff that can be done there, but you still want the user to know what they're doing, right? And I think that's really the key thing is and this is where the usability comes in, where you want to tell them, hey, this is actually what you're doing, and this site may be totally legitimate and wonderful, and not have any
human readable language.
Yeah, exactly. And I think too, even when it comes to set approved for all is like you want to read that, but even just straight transfers, right? What we've seen actually recently are scams that they don't actually do any, the drainer template and the drainer code that actually is used just says, hey, just send this much ETH to this address, and just doesn't, and so that's not going to trigger any warnings, right? Because sending ETH from one address to another address is not inherently, it's a perfectly legitimate act. It happens all the time. But the key thing is you have to, you want something that's going to be watching your back and helping you interpret that, right? And saying, hey, just like as a heads up, you're actually sending ETH out and you're not getting anything in return. So just make sure that you are actually, intending.
That's what you want to do.
So again, that's where that usability comes in. And I really hope that the industry in general will, as you said, like take a really hard look at how to actually, have human readable language so folks understand what they're doing. And I think that's going to save people a lot of heartache, a lot of headache, and a lot of just, general fear, right? When they're with these things.
And it's good having people looking at this specifically. So I remember it was the team at My Ether Wallet during Paris Blockchain Week. I was talking to them about set approval for all because I was on a bit of a mission with any wallet that wasn't giving people at least some information. So I think like finally MetaMask now actually does have the pop-up as well, saying you are given access to the contract. It's the one area where they have put something in. But there's a lot of wallets that weren't doing that. And I think it was really dangerous. So I went on a bit of a mission around it. And one of the pieces of feedback that My Ether Wallet gave was that it's a difficult area to work in, because they said that years ago they'd implemented a warning for people that were sending money to smart contracts directly, because that wasn't the norm if it was meant to be a transfer. But then smart contract wallets came out, and all of a sudden that changed, and it now wasn't as much of a thing. So what do you feel about the sort of the changing landscape of being able to stay on top of this, knowing that what may likely to be is kind of either a scam or a method, sort of a transaction that is usually suspect, then evolves into a different use case in future?
Yeah. So I think, there are two things here, right? One is scams are going to consistently evolve. So like, the scammer sophistication and techniques will go here, and then, checks to stop them will go here, and then they'll keep, it'll keep increasing. It'll be that ongoing battle of not just sophistication, but also context, as you said, right? So the key thing is understanding the context of what, where you are using these tools, and having those tools become, helping the user actually understand that context too, right? Because as you said, in certain situations, like set approved for all is absolutely fantastic. In other situations, it's not. But also too, at the end of the day, you want to make sure you are empowering users to really understand what's occurring. And I'm fine issuing a warning. I'm totally fine issuing a warning and saying, hey, you're about to, you set approve for all to transfer permissions here, even if it's on a legitimate website and nothing's wrong. Because just telling the user that you're doing something that could potentially be dangerous, like they should know that either way. And again, that's where that that usability thing comes back. I think the industry has a way to go there. And I would hope to, I would hope that we also generally take the view, not necessarily of the expert or the person that, that knows how to interact with these things well, but just of the novice, right? Of the person that doesn't know, and think, okay, what would they actually want with this? That should be, I think, our guiding light on user experience, especially with these safety and security tools.
So we've only got sort of a few minutes left here, but outside of this great piece of technology, which I think is a great sort of example of what you guys can do, what else are you currently working on?
Yep. So, our product, which we have today, is a suite of B2B APIs that basically take all that great functionality and make it available to any crypto orgs that want to use it to help keep their end users safe. Right. So the theme is we just want to get this tech out there as quickly as possible to help the ecosystem and help end users interact more safely with these decentralized technologies. Right. Obviously, if you're a pure centralized exchange, that's not going to be a product that matters that much to you. But again, as we see increasingly going towards the self-custody world, at least which is where I think hopefully the world will end up. You need this type of tooling, and we don't we're not going to get as many users as MetaMask, right? We want to make it available to those users of, pick whichever big crypto player that's using decentralized tech. So that's sort of those B2B APIs. And then, underlying all of this is like a pretty sophisticated data engine. Very proud of the team for what we've built there that can actually model risk on chain based on a variety of factors. And so there's a lot of really interesting products that I think we can build to help keep users safe once we have that. And so that's really like, what the team is working on a lot right now.
So any builders, industry people that are interested, where do they find out about that tool in that suite of products?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can go to TrustCheck.xyz, and then there's a B2B tab where we can reach out. You can also, feel free to join our Discord, our TrustCheck Discord, reach out. And then, you can also go to web3builders.co, which is sort of the higher level company website. So,
brilliant.
So, any of those.
Thank you. Well, Ricardo, it's been an absolute pleasure talking. I think it's something that I'm really passionate about in terms of making this space more accessible for people in it and then also new people coming in. I think you're really hitting on a lot of the topics there. I'm really interested to learn a little bit more actually around the risk model engine. I think that sounds like risk management seems to be a problem in crypto in 2022, FTX. So we'll see from there. But anyway, for this episode of the SlateCast, again, Ricardo, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. A real pleasure.
Brilliant. Speak to you again in one moment.